Yeah, so the other day I put these two blobs of the various types of slime on my piece of paper here. So I thought I'd give it time to dry. Got carried away doing a bunch of other things and I haven't got back to it today. But you can see they're both now dry to the touch. And that's actually something that's worthwhile thinking about in itself, because if you've got any kind of slow leak in your tyre, then, you know, at some stage, even these are going to dry inside gradually, which I've sort of experienced even in 6 months. Anyway, so if you remember the one on the right, number B, that was actually really sloppy. Now let's put the slime emergency repair on section A, and that can now sit there and soak in as it wishes. And let's put some of the SCA liquid patch puncture sealant there, which if I, yep, holy Jesus, that shit just fucking runs out. Now it's interesting that you can see pretty clearly here, now that it's dried, how many black little bits and pieces there are. I'm not quite sure what the other stuff is, but I think that's just the residuals of the goop. I think that the only thing that actually matters here is the little black dots. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more and see what we see. Okay, so now having zoomed in on part A a fair bit, we can see that there is quite a large density of particles. But if I move over and show you part B, there's far fewer particles per square millimeter than there is in the other one. So what that means is that the slime, which is part A, actually contains, exactly as it looks like, a ton more little tiny things to block holes. So you can see that there's a whole variety of sizes, you know, everything from the really small ones like, you know, these guys up here, to the much larger ones like that. Whereas this other one's got fuck all in there, and you'd pretty much actually have to, let me just see if I can focus that a bit better. There we go. You'd pretty much actually have to have a lot more of it in there, like, you know, more than, way more than double the volume to have the same amount of puncture protection. Which is interesting because the other one's got, you know, only about half the price. The cheap one, the SCA one, is only about half the price. So therefore, bang for buck, you know, the slime is actually the better unit to work with. So there's something else that I observed that I wanted to discuss as well. Okay, we're getting back to looking at you know, the two together. We can see that obviously you need a lot more of the SCA one, type B, to actually get enough particles compared to the actual branded slime, which is part A, or type A over here. But a very interesting thing is that obviously this has gone hard, so it's not moving around. And actually moving around is a really important thing. Moving around means that as a puncture occurs, according to the way slime and all of these things advertise the way they work, is that the deflation will actually slurp the stuff into the hole and fill it up. So it's got to remain moist in there. Now I can say that the last time I took a tyre off after 6 months, the slime had actually gone pretty hard. And I did a previous video where I put in a tip where I added some more of this SCA rubbish to get it to keep things moving around, but I found that it was actually just bleeding all the time. It occurred to me that what had probably happened is that the combination of it going a little bit dry, not as dry as this is here, but nonetheless a little bit dry, the combination of that and the centrifugal action of the spinning of the wheel has pretty much sedimented this stuff out. So I thought, okay, what I need to do is to actually break up anything that's stuck in one place, because sedimenting via centrifugal force is a pretty common technique, to make sure that you get parts, the solid parts out and the liquid parts separate. So I decided that I'd reduce the pressure in my tyre and then basically go around the surface of the tyre, the tread part of the tyre, the part that touches the road part of the tyre, and just keep whacking it with a hammer, you know, to basically make sure everything, you know, flaked off if it was, you know, already, you know, gone hard. And then I added another, I don't know, 60 cc's, I think it was, on my little syringe of actual just good old-fashioned plain water to it, and then spun it and hit the brakes suddenly, causing it to maybe flick, and then gave it another bash around, and then spun it with the back wheel, you know, just up in the air. Pretty easy to do, just to elevate the back, and that seems to have resulted in things not only bleeding a little bit, but actually stopping bleeding. So previously, when I'd put some more of the part A in, my tyres kept bleeding again, but they didn't really settle down. So I think that the topping up of the tyre with a bit of water every now and again and bashing things around to make sure that it's still held in place is actually a pretty important thing. Anyway, so that's my final tip on this. It's pretty clear that bang for buck, you need a lot more than double of type B to equal the same amount of particles as type A. And since it's not half the price, I recommend you stick with slime. Or your favourite armadillos or whatever it is, you know, armadillos. I'm in love with that shit. And just, you know, pick whatever one you like. But I think that both of them, you know, run flat or fucking slime or, you know, armadillos or whatever one of these things work. As long as it's not this cheap, crummy rubbish here, then you'll be fine. And keep, you know, redistributing it by, you know, adding a little bit of water and maybe whacking your tyre around the place every now and again, especially if you find you're getting a flat and it's not sealing properly. I think that that's going to be the low-hanging fruit, because I was pretty worried there I was going to have to redo my tyre, and I didn't want to do that because that's a pain in the ass. So comparatively, letting the pressure down a bit, you know, at about 10 or so psi, giving it a bit of a belt, and then adding a bit of water and repressurizing it, that's a peach. Okay, maybe that's a winner.